Te reo ererangi o te mānia. This episode was produced in Otatahi by Plains Media, with support from New Zealand On Air.
You've heard the dragons roar. Now it's time to hear the ocean's answer. Welcome back to Avis's next adventure, the continuation of Avis and the Promise of Dragons. I'm Audrey Worsley, your guide into the deep. This is Avis and the Call of the Kraken by Healther McQuillan, published by Ahoy, an imprint of the Cuba press in 2024. Ready? Hold your breath. The sea is waking. As Avis neared the corner of Menagerie Street, her dragon tear vibrated. Her stomach lurched before she realised it was just Humbert, waking up and checking where she was. Waving tentacles pried into her thoughts, long and snake-like, crimson and studded with barnacles. Not my worry, Humbert agreed. Melinda will handle it. But Mother contacted us, not Melinda. The morning air was crisp and clear, and so too was her mind talk with Humbert. She wondered what else he'd learned about frequencies, and amplitude, and sound waves. Avis heard the jandal-slapping footsteps, but didn't register the sound was following her until Lulu touched her arm. "Hey," Lulu said, panting. Her thick, dark hair crinkled out in waves over her shoulders as she tucked her tapper-patterned t-shirt into her track pants. "I've been trying to catch you. Didn't you hear me call out?" Avis shook her head. Her lips clamped shut. Her body went still. She didn't want to talk to Lulu. Without realising it, her hand covered the zit that was on the side of her nose. "Tell her to go away." Humbert's mind voice was so strong, Avis was startled a little. "I just wanted to say sorry," said Lulu. "I'm glad you got home okay." "We had to wait until after dark," said Avis, not acknowledging the apology. "Well, yeah, like I said, I'm sorry." Avis knew Lulu wanted her to say it was okay, but it wasn't okay. Yesterday had been long and complicated. She was still tired. Don't trust her. Avis kept her lips closed and continued walking. Lulu kept pace alongside her. The green fence to Melinda's place was coming up, and then the corner of Menagerie Street, with Avis's house at the end. This was familiar territory, but it seemed different today, as if the world was a little tilted. The way Avis pressed her lips together reminded her of when her mother left. When her mother had said sorry and tried to explain, Avis hadn't said a thing. She still hadn't talked to her mother about that day, and the weight of that unforgiveness churned in her stomach. Or maybe it was the 2 peanut slabs she had eaten. "Did you save some for me?" "I just really wanted to see your dragons," continued Lulu. "They're awesome." Avis stopped walking. "You can't tell anyone, ever." "I won't," said Lulu, looking a little offended. "In a way, your dragons are a bit like me." Avis glared. Her dragons were nothing like this girl. They were mythical, wonderful creatures with glimmering and shimmering scales. "Thank you." Then Avis realised that wasn't what Lulu meant. "Like you, how?" Lulu looked uncomfortable, as if she had already said too much, and there was something she didn't want to say. Avis huffed off, leaving Lulu on the grass verge. "I don't think her name is Lulu. My instincts—" "Humbert says your name's not Lulu," said Avis. "He said that? Is it true?" She looked about. "Is he here? Is he talking to you?" "He's at Melinda's." Avis touched the dragon tear. "That crystal, it really is a communication device. Wow! Why don't you use your real name?" Lulu bit her lip and came closer to Avis. "Can I trust you? And your dragon?" "You know our secret," Avis faltered. She wasn't sure it was right to ask for a secret in return. It didn't sound friendly. More like asking someone for a secret so you could use it against them. "If I tell you, and you tell anyone else, it will cause heaps of trouble, not just for me, but for the Papaloos and my mother. What sort of trouble? The Papaloos would probably go to prison, and Mum would probably try to save them, and then she'd get sent to prison too. And then I'd have no one and no place to go because I don't have a home without the Papaloos. And I'll never get the education I need to become a journalist, to investigate, and to write all about what's happened to my people. Avis weighed all this up. That was a big consequence. She's like me, sort of. She doesn't have a home. She's not meant to be here. You're not meant to be here, are you? Said Avis, looking Lulu in the eye. Lulu looked at the ground. Are you going to tell? I haven't heard the secret yet. It might be one of those secrets where people get hurt if you don't tell. I'm not really the Papaloo's niece. Lulu raised her eyes to meet Avis's. Who are you then? I'm an imposter, using someone else's identity. So, who's Lulu? She is the Papaloo's real niece. She's about my age, so I used her papers. Do the Papaloos know? Of course. They helped Mum come up with a plan after the real Lulu said she no way wanted to go to school over here, even though she's entitled to it. They all knew how much it would mean to me, but I don't have the right papers. You're an illegal immigrant, Avis said. She knew people did all sorts of things to keep illegal immigrants out of their countries, like building walls and locking them up on remote islands and making laws to send them home. Mum sold our yacht to get me here. Now she's working as a maid and lives in a room in the back of people's house. There's no room for me, and I can't go back. And I can't go to the island where I was born, either. It's ruined. Lily glanced anxiously behind her. Are you going to tell? I never promised I wouldn't. I never asked you to promise. Why not? I thought I'd leave that up to you. Anyway, people break promises all the time. Avis continued walking, swinging the milk bottle in her hand. She repeated something Melinda had once said. If every promise was an egg, then the world would be miles deep in broken eggshells. True, said Lulu. A mining company made all sorts of promises to our people. They were going to be protected. They were going to be rich. They were going to be compensated. Instead, they were ripped off and abandoned and blamed for the situation they're in now, with no resources, no hope, and no safe home. When I'm a journalist, I'm going to make sure the liars and the cheaters get exposed. They reached Melinda's green fence. Avis ran her fingernails across it, rat-a-tat-tat. Theo gave a welcome bark, but it wasn't her home. Her home was around the corner on Menagerie Street with her dad. And she had another home, whenever she wanted it, with her mum and Aaron and Bruno, and soon-to-be baby. Avis removed the keys to the padlock from her pocket. She wanted to tell Lulu she forgave her for giving chocolate to Princess, because she'd probably have done the same thing. She wanted to say it was all her fault in the first place for not wanting to go back on the boat. She wanted to say that she would still like to be friends. Instead, what she said is, "Do you want to come in?" The dragons are probably awake now, although they may choose to stay camouflaged, and I ate all the chocolate. I knew it. Lulu smiled a little. I thought you said I wouldn't ever see them again. I was angry, Avis shrugged. It was the best she could come up without saying all the stuff in her head. I'd love to see them again, and I want to talk to you about that Taniwha too, but right now I have to go back to the dairy, said Lulu. I'm grounded for at least a week because of yesterday. Uncle Noah is really upset. He says I shamed them. Lulu touched Avis on the shoulder and stooped a little so their eyes were on the same level. Avis, I'm really sorry for causing all that trouble yesterday. It's okay, said Avis, finally accepting her apology and feeling relieved they had sorted it out. I would have been tempted to do the same thing. She knew she had done far worse. Humbert was not happy. Avis knew it the second she set foot in the gate. As she trudged up the long gravel drive, she felt it even more. Both dragons were standing in front of the house beside Melinda's white van. Avis glared at Princess, who, since the effects of yesterday's chocolate had worn off, was a rosy shimmer of scales. What have you said now? He's not angry with me. He's angry at you, Princess purred with a flick of her tail. Well, you shouldn't listen in on my thoughts when I'm not talking to you. Avis turned towards Humbert with her hands on her hips. The chocolate had peanuts, it might have made you sick. Humbert swung his head away from her in a huff. It's not the chocolate he's upset about, Princess said. He's jealous. Jealous? Asked Avis. What of? Not telling, said Princess. She lifted her scaly, shimmery body from the ground and trotted around to the back garden to see if Melinda had her breakfast mash ready yet. Humbert, said Avis, reaching out a hand to touch his neck. The dragon flinched away. She tried again. Humbert, what have I done to upset you? Yesterday you said we were the best of friends and nothing could change that. Lulu, he said and sniffed through his wide nostrils. You've made friends with Lulu. She can be my friend too, said Avis. I told you I needed a friend. But you have me. A human friend. Am I not good enough? I promised to do what you need, and I try really hard at being a friend. Humbert crouched on the driveway, a ball of scaly misery. I gave you wise counsel. And I listened, and I disagreed respectfully, and... Humbert buried his snout between his front legs so that Avis couldn't hear what he was saying, but it sounded as if he was continuing his checklist. Humbert, you don't need to be jealous, she said. We can all have more than one friend, and each of our friends can be different. You have me and Melinda and Princess. Humbert jerked his head up. Princess is not my friend. She doesn't like me and I don't like her. That sometimes happens with siblings, said Avis, gently. Bruno and I never used to get along. Humbert swiveled his head so Avis could see herself reflected in his amber eyes. Princess is not my sister, he said. She's my mate. We were chosen as eggs to be nestmates and to breed so our entire species doesn't die out. It's a huge responsibility. You don't get it. Avis realised this was something she had known all along, ever since she had seen the second egg in the nest and how Humbert had cared for it, keeping it cool, a soft-shelled, grey-looking thing, half covered in dirt, nestled in with a hollow of damp leaves. She looked at Humbert closely, trying to imagine him as a father. Princess and I have to be parents. And how can we be parents if we don't like each other? Avis laughed, but it wasn't the happy sort of laugh, more the sort you do when you figured out something that you should have seen long ago. I don't think that's a requirement, she said. Mum and Dad used to love each other, and now... Well, Mum liked Aaron more than she liked Dad, so she left us to be with him. If it weren't for Aaron's job in Australia, then I might even be living half-time with her, but... Humbert leaned his long snout over Avis's shoulder and rested his chin there. Warm breath and kind words reached her ears. I'm sure your mum still loves you from over in Australia. And I know your dad still loves you. You can see it in the way he looks at you. See then, said Avis, you and Princess can be good parents, even if you don't get along all the time. You just have to try to be respectful to each other. She hoped this was the right thing to say. Her worry tummy had started up again. She wondered how many babies Humbert and Princess planned to have. What if Makonui Island was too small for their whole family? Melinda called them for breakfast. There was a mash of grains, bone meal and minerals for the dragons, and a pile of toast for the humans. The mash was sold as pig feed, but the dragons seemed to enjoy it. I've got the milk, called Avis. Coming. Avis reached up a hand to the fine golden whiskers curling from Humbert's chin. He was growing up. So dragons do have whiskers. You'll need a shave soon. She laughed again, this time in a happier way. Then she wished he hadn't. Don't laugh at me, Humbert pulled back. I wasn't. You were. And I can't help I'm growing older. But I don't want to talk about it. Humbert pushed his bucket of mash to the far end of the garden to eat alone. What's up with him? He's turning into a teenager, said Avis. Princess smirked. Not the only one. Shut up, said Avis and rubbed the zit on the side of her nose. It hurt. Melinda asked Avis a few questions about Mother and her children. I know we need to shut down the drilling rig. But how? Asked Avis. I've got a plan. And? The less you know, the safer you'll be. When her dad, Ralph, opened the gate and strode up the drive, Avis raced to greet him. She jumped up into his arms and he gripped her tight, twirling her around. "I've missed you, Avy bird. I've missed you too, Daddy Wolf," said Avis, using the name she hadn't used for a long time. It felt so good to be Avy bird again, little and lifted into the strong arms of her father. But she was too big for it to last long. Her father placed her gently back on the ground and looked up at the two dragons, Theo and Melinda, heading towards him. He nodded at the dragons respectfully and patted Theo and reached to shake Melinda's hand. "Great to see you back, Ralph," said Melinda. "Avis, as usual, has been extremely helpful and resourceful and brave." "Brave?" Her father looked concerned at this. "Not really, I was seasick," said Avis. "Poor little Avy bird." He patted her on the head as if she was the dog. "Hey, have you grown more in the last week? What have you been feeding her, Melinda?" The grown-ups laughed and Avis blushed. She was getting taller and growing in other ways. It felt weird and awkward, and she didn't want other people pointing it out. She wondered how her dad was going to cope when she told him she would need a bra soon. Avis looked at Humbert, who deliberately looked the other way. She figured they'd sort their argument out later, so she took her father's hand and, with Theo on his leash in the other, and went through the gate and headed towards the dead end of Menagerie Street. The house felt too empty and too quiet without Bruno. Ralph handed Avis a box. "This was Bruno's idea and your mum paid for it." She lifted out a smartphone, something she had wanted for ages. "Bruno and I set it up for you before I left. It should be ready to go." The screen image was a butt. Not a real butt, a photo of a peach that looked like a butt. "What's the password?" she asked. Bruno said you'd know. Avis tried butt, and then butt face, and finally Avy butt. He's so predictable. He's going to call you later, a private call, so you can tell him all about the dragons. Poor old Bruno. He knows he's missing a lot being away. It's a good fresh start for him over there, though. Things got a bit complicated over here for him. Avis wanted to tell her dad how complicated things were for her too. Instead, she asked him how good mate Stu was. Stu and her dad had been best friends since school. They had been the best man at each other's weddings, and now they were both single again. Ralph described Stu's cool apartment in Auckland. He didn't need a bigger place because he only saw his kid in the holidays, and always took them away somewhere fancy. The rest of the time he lived his own life. Then her dad went quiet and looked at the family photos on the wall. There was still one of the whole family on a tramping trip when Avis was 5. Avis wondered if he was thinking he'd like to have a cool apartment and only see his kids during the holidays, but she didn't dare ask him, in case he said yes. "Now tell me, your school sailing trip, it's tomorrow, isn't it?" her dad asked. Avis was surprised he'd remembered. She'd forgotten all about it. She pulled the notice about the trip out of her bag and handed it to her father, and together they found everything on the list. A change of clothes, a wind jacket, a swimming costume and towel, a water bottle, snacks. There wasn't any fresh fruit in the fridge, so they went to get burgers for lunch, and then to the supermarket for supplies. It all seemed so normal, pushing the trolleys around and getting bread and milk and eggs. Avis forgot her worries for a couple of hours. When Dad asked what she'd been up to, she told him about the trip to the island with Melinda. She made him laugh with her story about the turkey fight, but said nothing about the Kraken, Taniwha, or sea monster. He might ground her or something if he knew what danger she'd been in. Instead, she told him about penguins and the sandflies, and when they got home, he found a half-squeezed tube of antihistamine in the bathroom cupboard. He dabbed a bit on the side of her nose, too. "Big bite there," he said. Avis took Bruno's call in her bedroom. The light was dim in there, and it meant Bruno wouldn't be able to see her zit and tease her about it. Like she was sure he'd have done if he'd been here. She had teased him about zits for years, but now she had her own. She didn't find them so funny. She told Bruno all about the Kraken/Taniwha/sea monster. It was easy to share something with someone who understood. Even so, he accused her of pranking him when she mentioned Mother. "Why would I make this up?" she asked. "For attention? I don't know. 'Cause you love all those fantasy monsters and stories. It's all true and it's nothing like the books at all. It's scary, for real. And it's hard not knowing the right thing to do about the drilling rig. Melinda said I should let her sort it out. Really? Asked Bruno. Like, she's super brainy and all that, but she's not the most responsible person. What can I do? I'm just a kid. A kid with a dragon, Bruno reminded her. I can hardly get Humbert to burn the drilling rig, said Avis, though I'm sure he'd be as keen as a bean. Anyway, we're not exactly getting along at the moment. Uh-oh, that sounds bad. Yeah, said Avis. I think it's because we started needing different things. He needs to be a wild dragon and I need him to be tame. I need other friends and he wants it to keep just the two of us. Tough stuff, said Bruno. Avis waited for him to say something more. He didn't. I guess I am going to have to figure this out for myself, she thought. Bruno told her about his new school and about living with Mum and Aaron. Aaron's a bit of a jerk, but he's trying super hard. He keeps wanting me to pass a rugby ball around. Avis laughed. Bruno had never been sporty, and now he was living with a rugby hero. I pity the new baby. When it gets here, Aaron will probably put a rugby ball in its cot instead of a teddy bear. Avis laughed again. Then she stopped. Bruno would be there when the new baby arrived, but what about her? Would the baby even know it had a big sister? They said goodnight and Bruno said he'd ring up again tomorrow to hear about her sailing trip. Avis laid the dragon's tear on top of its pouch on her bedside table. Humbert had been quiet all afternoon and evening. The tear was a muddy sort of yellow, which was not a mood she recognised. She thought about saying goodnight to him and to try to make up, but she didn't think she had anything to apologise for. Humbert can call me, she thought. As she drifted to sleep, Avis wondered about the possibility of making her fresh start, like Bruno had. She wondered if she might eventually go live with her mum too. Maybe Dad was waiting for the right moment to send her away, so he could get a cool apartment like Goodmate Stu and start living his own life. She pulled the duvet over her head, fed up with having to do what other people or dragons wanted. Then she thought, I might like getting away for a bit, spending time with Bruno and Mum, far from sea monsters, and from Melinda, who probably won't be able to do anything about the drilling rig, even though she said she would. Far from the secrets and lies and me and Jake and having to do restoration with Archie, and far from complicated Lulu, and from Humbert. She tried to hush that thought in case Humbert picked up on it. He did his best, but he was a dragon, and as Avis well knew, dragons were not pets. They were wild, independent creatures, and not entirely trustworthy. She held the dragon's tear in her palm. It was soft green now, like mint, and warm in her palm. Humbert must be sleeping. There were no waves of colour, no tentacles or stories of deep-sea life. No stories at all. She placed it on the top of the satin pouch. This is what life would be like without Humbert, she thought. Calm and easy, with no stories. And that wraps up today's tale on Spin Me a Tale. But don't wander too far. Join me next Saturday at 9:30 a.m. on Plains Media, broadcasting on 96.9 FM for the next episode in our journey. If you want to relive the magic, all past episodes are waiting at plains.org.nz. Let your imagination stay wide awake.